Hello again. A little more awake this time. We are in between sessions of just fascinating things that we're talking about today. So I'm sure you'll want to hear all about it. Anyway, our second and basically our final thing I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of combine B, setup, and D, effects. C, I'm just going to leave alone. If you want it, I'll give it to you, but I don't think it's not really covered as much like it used to be. So here we're talking about parties, how they're set up, how they're sort of structured, and then the effects they have on the process. Okay, just in general, if you think about government, since the founding, maybe this is good, maybe this is bad to you, but we've definitely gotten more of a national flavor. National governments become stronger. So as a consequence, states and local governments have become weaker. Parties is kind of the opposite in some ways. You've got a national party, but nobody really follow. Who's the chairman of the Republican National Committee? You have any idea? Because whoever they are, they pale in comparison to Donald Trump, and whoever the chairman of the Democratic National Committee is going to pale in comparison to Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, because that's really where the power is, frankly. So they're more decentralized than they used to be. Partly because of primaries. Primaries put the power in the hands of the voters and the caucuses, and out of the hands of the party bosses. You guys that took push, which probably all of you remember surely the boss Tweed and all that stuff, where they would dole out jobs and favors and all that stuff in exchange for loyalty and votes. Well, those days are pretty much gone. Not completely, Chicago, et cetera, but more and more. But nationally, they're gone. That doesn't really exist. So partly primaries and partly just the idea of federalism, that the local Chicago has a lot different needs than San Francisco, and San Francisco has different needs than Indianapolis, and so on and so on and so on. And even down, whether state or local or township or block or whatever it is. So you see a more decentralized structure which allows more freedom to do what needs to be done for that particular area, that particular situation. Think about the way that Detroit, for instance, handled the riots way differently than Minneapolis did. They had a lot less damage and stuff, but Minneapolis had a lot more, quote, freedom to do what they felt they needed to do. So you balance those things. So we sort of float into the effects. It all kind of goes together, like I said, that people don't identify as a certain party anymore. People don't identify as a lot of things anymore. You've all heard of Lions Club, I presume, and I don't know if you've heard of Kiwanis, but that's what K stands for, K-Burgers. People don't join clubs and organizations of Masons and all that stuff like they used to. Most of you probably have a grandparent that was a Mason, or they call it Eastern Star, or Kiwanis, or Toma, one of these things. Anyway, we don't join parties, we don't join a lot of things because our lives have become more, and this is even before COVID. COVID just makes it that much worse. So you don't identify. I'm an independent. I'm a liberal, but not necessarily a Democrat. I'm a conservative, but not necessarily a Republican. I'm libertarian kind of thing. Or I just don't really pay much attention at all because I'm busy playing, Call of Duty, etc. So we don't join, so the parties don't have as much sway over people like they used to. So it becomes a lot more, I didn't put this, but a lot more, rock star based, if you will. Donald Trump is a star. Barack Obama, without doubt, was a star. Biden, not quite so, but you see character, Bernie Sanders is this whole aura around them kind of thing. And whoever captures that tends to capture the imagination of people, not the guy that works his way up. Think of all the Republicans that spent their whole life looking for this moment. Here comes Donald Trump on a whim, going down the escalator. I'm going to win the presidency, and he goes down, and of course, there we go. So it kind of has upended, not just him, but just he's a symptom of that, I think, that upended the whole traditional way that parties sort of control that. And then finally, to close this, basically within each party you have disparate views. We've talked about this, especially if you think about the Democrats. You've got black, you've got Hispanic, you've got Asian, you've got gay, you've got trans, you've got feminists who sometimes with trans, that doesn't go well. Sometimes blacks, Hispanics, etc. You've got the more the progressive, the AOCs and the Bernies of the world. And you've also got the more moderates who are all fighting to control the message, if you will. So they have to allow a lot of freedom within the party as to what we stand for. But the more you stand for things, the more things you stand for, the less you really stand for, if that makes sense. And the Republicans sort of have that same thing too, where they're trying to attract, more minority votes. Hispanics, they've made some inroads, especially in places like Florida. But then you get into the good old boys that we've talked about, and you've also got the corporate, and you've got the Fishers type and the Carmel, the white suburban housewife types and all that, if you will. And how do you control your message, and how do you say, here's what a Republican is? Because the more you fragment, the more you peel off voters, and you peel off enough voters, the other side wins. That's what the danger of third parties to some degree is, and the dangers of going too far off of message. Because, as we've talked about, a lot of the message this last time was, don't vote for Trump from the Democrats, and it worked for them. If Trump would have been a bit more subdued and the economy would have been better, probably, frankly, he wins re-election, in spite of all the tweeting and the angry and all that. So parties are going to have become a lot more flexible and stand for more things, and basically change who they appeal to. 20 years ago, the good old boy types were the hardcore Democrats, the Pennsylvania coal miners and all that, and Republicans were your Carmel and Fishers, and suburban Atlanta, suburban Philadelphia, suburban Detroit, and so on. Now they've gone more Democrats, so you've kind of shifted your gears there a bit, because you're allowing this bigger tent. There's a lot of the big tent theory. We can accommodate a lot of people. And parties seem to have gone more toward that, with some exceptions. Okay, so that's about all we need to know there. Any questions? I'll address some of this I won't. But this is kind of cover that first part, and then I'll move on to interest groups to close this out. And then we've got that kind of takes care of us. But I'm going to spend more time on interest groups than I want to spend on parties and class. So this is what you're going to get for now. All right, bye.